Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each of the episodes against each other. Today's episode is One Piece East Blue Saga, Syrup Village Arc, Episode 11, Revealing the Conspiracy, the Pirate Caretaker, Captain Kuro. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of exactly what happens within this episode. So our episode starts with Usopp running right past our vegetable kids and Nami and Zoro, who are at the side of the road and towards the village. Once he reaches the village, he starts yelling that pirates are going to attack in the morning and that Klahadore is actually Captain Kuro. And the villagers come out with their brooms and their pans and their pitchforks and basically chase him away, saying that he is a liar. Why would we believe you? We don't believe you. Stop lying. Why are you lying? This time about somebody that is very honest and trustworthy. If you were as trustworthy as Klahadore, maybe we'd believe you. These types of things. Feeling that the village is a lost cause, he then goes to at least help Kaya because she is the target of the assassination plan. It's her wealth that they want. It's her they want to kill. And so he runs to the tree outside her window where he always goes. And he climbs up and he tells Kaya, "You have to leave. Klahadore is coming to kill you and wants your fortune." And she, of course, is very hurt by this. Like, how could you say this about somebody else? I used to love your stories. They made me so happy. But lying to hurt someone like this, about someone I care about, like, why are you doing this? Not really understanding. Then, of course, Mary comes in, and Mary sees him, basically Kaya's reaction to him, and is very upset. And he then grabs Kaya, and Mary pulls out a gun at him because now he has attempted to kidnap her. And he, in fact, does temporarily kidnap her out of the window to the ground where he tries to basically drag her away forcibly. And he is basically stopped by the villagers catching up to him at the manor and Mary with his gun. And he then decides to run away. Mary then shoots at him, and Kaya does try to get between them, but she isn't fast enough, and Usopp does end up grazed by a bullet as he is running away. He then kind of walks desolately down the road, wondering why no one will believe him, despite him crying pirate every day for years at this point. And eventually he comes across the vegetable children, and he tells them that. And he's surprised that Luffy is actually alive because he was just sleeping at the bottom of the cliff. But then he basically laughs like he was telling a joke to the vegetable children, and they basically say that they've lost respect for him because he's never lied to hurt anyone before, and this is behavior they can't get behind. And they then leave. And Usopp essentially then talks to the Straw Hat Pirates, and they ask him why he did that. Why did he lie to them? Because obviously Luffy overheard the conversation as well. And Usopp basically says that they all think I'm a liar, no one's going to believe me, and I'm going to make sure that I stay a liar because tomorrow, when the pirates attack, I am going to stop them at the beach to make sure that they cannot harm the village, and for the villagers, it'll be just a normal everyday, as it always has been, and he will remain a liar, which is a rather honorable stance to take. And this is something that the Straw Hat Pirates appreciate. Luffy comes to see that he is a good person, someone that he would like, and so therefore the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami all agree that they are going to help Usopp, who thanks them, of course, crying while his legs are shaking because ultimately he is also very terrified. But it's the fact that he is standing up even in spite of that earns their respect. So that is what happens in this episode. And now that we've been reminded of what happens within this episode, it's time to rank the episode, and I rank on two lists, a mostly objective ranking list and also a personal ranking list. So I'm going to start with our mostly objective rank values, as always, and we start with the positives typically. So first off, we have our single arc supporting character introduction with Mary. And then we have our multi-arc main character development, which of course concerns Usopp, who is shot, who has everybody he's ever known in his life turn against him, has Kaya turn against him, and then also the development of gaining the Straw Hat support. So a lot of development for Usopp kind of as a character. We also get some flashbacks to how he first met Kaya and some of the first stories that he had told her. And that is worth 4 points. The single arc supporting character introduction was 1 point, which brings us to 5 so far. We also have some multi-arc main character growth, which I feel also pertains to Usopp. He obviously learns the consequences of crying pirate. And then he makes the decision to own that reputation that he has as a liar and make sure that it stays that way by deciding on his own without help initially that he is going to save the village. Of course, we do know that the Straw Hats then step in and decide to join him in this battle, so he's not actually going to be alone. But it is the fact that when he thinks he's going to be alone, he still steps up. And that I feel is some growth, and also that he does, while at first he kind of questions, why don't they believe me, even though the answer is very obvious, by the time we get to this point where he's standing up and owning his reputation, he has come to the conclusion that he is crying pirate, and that is what has led to him having the villagers turn against him. And that also is worth 4 points. So that brings us to 9 points overall. But we do have some negatives. The first one is that this is obviously a setup episode. We are setting up for the battles to come. We are setting up that the village will not be a part of it, and we are setting up that Usopp is essentially on his own, as nobody is believing him, and then setting up why the Straw Hats are joining him and that they will be joining him. So it's basically a setup episode for the future battles, and that is a -1 point, which then brings us to 8. And then we have what I would consider the negative messaging or behavior, which is Usopp's attempted kidnapping of Kaya. Now I see both sides. I see why Usopp is so desperate. This is his main friend. This is somebody who he went out of his way to cheer up, to tell stories that matters a lot to him, and is also the main target of the assassination. So I understand him running to warn her. I understand him doing everything that he can to try to get her out of danger. However, at the same time, going up to someone's window, grabbing them physically, and then launching yourself out of the window with a gun pointed at you with this person who doesn't believe you and doesn't want to go with you, that is, no matter how you look at it, attempted kidnapping. That is a crime. That is not a great thing to do. And like I said, I understand why he did it. I understand the motivations behind it. It doesn't erase the fact that that is not a good thing. You do not kidnap people, even when they are people you care about and the kidnapping is to save them. Kidnapping is still ultimately kidnapping. So that is a -2 points, which then brings us to a mostly objective score for this episode of 6 out of 10. And so as a reminder of our arc rankings so far, on our mostly objective ranking, in first place we have the world's strongest weirdo, Django the Hypnotist. Second, honorable liar, Captain Usopp. And then in third, we have revealing the conspiracy, the pirate caretaker, Captain Kuro. And boy, is that a mouthful. So now we come to my personal ranking. And I have mentioned this before. Usopp, he does grow on me. I do like him as a character in the future. However, in his introduction arc, not a fan. And this episode was very heavy on some of the reasons why that is. So obviously he's running to warn the village. Good thing. However, because he has been crying pirate his entire life, pretty much, since his dad left, especially once his, well, we're going to learn his backstory in the future. I'll comment on that then. But basically, we've shown since childhood he's been running through the village crying pirate. So he runs to the village crying pirate once again, and while this time it is a real threat, he's not believed, obviously. But then he goes to Kaya and immediately, like violently grabbing her, immediately not accepting her responses, immediately trying to kidnap her. Like I said, I fully understand the motivation behind this and the reasons why, and I do think that, it is a good thing to try to save her. And they obviously will learn the error of their actions in the future. But kidnapping should never be the first resort. There's also a lot of flashbacks to him telling stories. Some of them are visual, kind of standstill watercolor pictures, and then others are like purely auditory, like just with the words that they're saying, but like not showing an actual flashback. And I feel like in a lot of cases, when the crew have flashbacks to, fond memories or motivations, etc., they usually actually show it. And I'm not really a fan of the switching to watercolors, personally. Obviously, it's my personal list, so they're all personal opinions. And it is a setup episode, so you're basically just getting the motivations for things and setting up that, they're going to be on their own and why that is, so on and so forth. So overall, not the most entertaining of episodes either. However, there were some redeeming qualities, at least to me. One of those, of course, is when the crew and the vegetable children, bell pepper, onion, and carrot, go to the cliff where Usopp goes to think. They kind of look for Luffy. Nami then like kind of looks over the cliff and sees him on the ground at the bottom of the cliff, so they go down. Zoro wakes up Luffy by hitting, kind of like poking him with his sword, and like a sheathed sword, obviously. He's not stabbing him, but. And then Luffy kind of wakes up having like a nice sleep, and like Zoro asks like, "Why are you down here?" And Luffy just laughs and goes, "Here's the thing. I thought I was up on the cliff. And then so how'd I get down here?" And it's like, that's what they were asking you. But I thought that was funny. And then they, of course, learn about how, like once Luffy tells the vegetable children what they had overheard, the vegetable children are like, "Oh, we've got to make sure that we go get our valuables and that we leave with the rest of the village." And Luffy's primary concern is that they got to go stock up on meat before the food store owner goes ahead and flees the village, which I thought was great. And then, of course, we get the whole Kuro's crew. I love how a lot of the villainous crews kind of have like a theme to them. Obviously we had the kind of heart-shaped overall pink theme of Alvida. Then we had our clown theme with Buggy, or rather circus theme with Buggy. He was the clown of the circus, but they also had acrobats and jugglers and all other types, beast tamers. So a circus themed crew. And now with Kuro's crew, we see that it is cat themed, and I love the themes. So obviously enjoy that. But those kind of minor funny moments and points of interest don't really fully redeem the episode. For me personally, like I just wasn't entertained while watching it. And I know there are better ones coming up within the same arc in the future, so for that reason, I gave it a 2 out of 10. Just wasn't my favorite. And so our arc rankings so far on the personal ranking match the objective ranking, though the scores have been different. And in first place, we have the world's strongest weirdo, Django the Hypnotist. In second, Honorable Liar, Captain Usopp. And then in third, Revealing the Conspiracy, the pirate caretaker, Captain Kuro. So the next segment that we come to is our saga ranking so far. This is where we are ranking each of the arcs within the same saga. And On our mostly objective ranking so far, we have Romance Dawn in first place with 86.67%, the Orangetown arc in second with 76%, and then the Syrup Village score so far, we are adding 6, and that brings us to 22 out of 100. We then move over to our personal ranking, and this is where we have our Orangetown arc coming in first place so far with 74%, then the Romance Dawn arc with 66.67% in second place, and on Syrup Village so far, we are adding 2 and coming to a score of 13 out of 100. And then at last we are at our final segment, which is the series ranking so far, which is where we are going to be ranking each of the sagas against each other. And so far on our mostly objective ranking for the East Blue Saga, we have 16 out of 80, and on the personal side, 11 out of 80. With that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Piece East Blue Saga Syrup Village Arc Episode 11, Revealing the Conspiracy, the Pirate Caretaker Captain Kuro, which literally was barely in the video, like in this episode at all. Just pointing that out retroactively. So like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.